The plastic lid clattered against the alley floor, and a sour wave of smell rose up from the dented metal bin. I was 8, barefoot, shivering, and my stomach had learned a new sound, a dry growl that felt like it came from my bones. "Please, Mom, I'm hungry." My voice was small. The word Mom fell out of me like a mistake I couldn't stop making. She didn't look at me. Her red nails pinched a cold paper bag from the top of the trash and pushed it into my hands. "Eat what you get, Noor." Her heels clicked away. I opened the bag. Grease stains. A broken burger bun, wilted lettuce, 2 ants doing a happy dance around a smear of sauce. The alley hummed with the afternoon, generator buzzing, horns snarling on the road, the sky so white it hurt to stare. A black car slowed at the mouth of the lane. The window slid down. A man's eyes, startled and kind, cut through the heat. He saw the bag. He saw me. His voice came like shade. "Put that down, kiddo. You're coming to eat with me." This was the moment that changed my life. If you're watching this, I want you to breathe with me for a second. Imagine being so hungry that cardboard smells like bread. Imagine hands that should hold you pushing you toward a bin. I know this is heavy. But you and I, right now, we can turn heavy into hope. Drop a comment as you watch. What does a real meal mean to you? Is it a plate of biryani? A bowl of soup? A slice of bread shared with someone who looks at you like you matter? Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me, honestly, if you've ever looked away when you saw something wrong because it felt too messy to step in. No judging. I'm not here to make you feel guilty. I'm here to tell you that one stranger with a steady voice changed everything for me, and I'm going to show you how it happened. Stay with me. This isn't just a sad story. It's a road out. There will be turns. There will be nights that feel longer than they should. There will be a table at the end. Bright lights. Silver lids lifting. Steam rising like a prayer. If you've ever been underestimated, if someone tried to convince you that scraps are the best you deserve, watch closely. The moment when that lie breaks, it's coming. And when it does, I want you to feel your chest open like a window. My name is Noor. The first house I remember was warm with the smell of cardamom tea and soap. We lived off a busy road where buses coughed black smoke and fruit sellers sang prices like poetry. The walls of our home were painted in soft, peeling blues, and the corridor always held a hint of sun because the windows faced east. My mother's hands were quick and gentle. I remember the way her bangles made tiny bells when she kneaded dough. She died when I was 6. People say passed away like it's a boat on a lake. It felt more like a door that slammed and didn't open again. After that, the house changed. My father was a carpenter with kind eyes that got tired too fast. He tried. He really did. He cooked eggs that tasted like the pan and tied my braids like he was wrapping a gift. But grief is a fog that makes people bump into furniture and decide the furniture is evil. He met Rania when I was 7. She wore perfume like a promise and smiled with all her teeth. The first time she came over, she brought a cake and called me sweetheart. I thought, maybe the house would learn to sing again. For a few weeks, it did. She brought new curtains the color of ripe mango and a vase of plastic roses that never drank water. She said she would be my new mom. She said we would be best friends. She said we would bake cupcakes. But there was a shadow under her words that I didn't know how to name. It showed up in tiny places first, like how she corrected my fork, my shoes, my breath. Close your mouth when you chew. Why is your laugh so loud? Don't touch the glass. Your fingerprints are everywhere. My father took a job refurbishing a hotel 2 cities away. He would leave on Mondays before sunrise and come back late on Fridays, smelling like sawdust and road dust, pressing tired kisses to my forehead. Take care of each other, he'd say, looking at Rania with soft hope. Rania would nod and tuck her hair behind her ear and say, "Of course. We're family." The first time she threw out my lunch, it was a Tuesday. The house was quiet. The radio was playing old songs. I had packed leftovers from dinner into a small plastic box, rice with chickpeas, a few strips of fried eggplant. I was proud, like I'd made a plan. She opened the box and stared at it like it insulted her. "This is leftover. It smells." She tilted the box over the bin in one smooth, clean movement. "Food is fresh, or it's garbage. Do you understand?" I said. "Yes. Because when you're 8, you think adults know the rules of the world." When she told me to eat after I finished sweeping the corridor, I believed her timing was wisdom. When she told me I was getting chubby and needed to skip breakfast, I believed health was supposed to hurt. There was a woman in the building next door named Auntie Sabine. She had silver hair coiled at the nape of her neck and eyes that didn't miss much. Sometimes, when I took the trash out, she'd be watering her basil plants on the balcony. She'd toss me a bright green leaf and whisper, "Chew it for luck." I'd smile, hold the taste of pepper and sun on my tongue. She asked me once if everything was okay at home. I said yes, because my father's phone calls were short and busy. Because Rania's eyebrows lifted in warning if I talked too much. Because I didn't have words big enough for the shape of the number. School was my safe place, until it wasn't. Miss Layla, my teacher, wore cotton saris and smelled like jasmine. She clapped for us when we spelled difficult words. She lent me books about brave girls who climbed trees and solved mysteries. On Wednesdays, she brought a box of dates to class and passed them out for energy. I learned how to pocket one and tuck it under my tongue to make it last. When the lunch bell rang, kids unpacked their boxes. Parathas, pasta, fruit. I learned how to tie my hunger into a small knot and watch without letting my eyes go greedy. Rania didn't hit me at first. She hit the table with a spoon when I didn't carry the plates fast enough. She hit the curtain with a duster when sunlight made dust dance in the room. She hit the wall with her heel when a neighbor's radio played too loud. She learned my timing, where I stood, how I reached, how I breathed. And then one night, when my father was away, and the electricity cut, and the kitchen filled with candlelight, she slapped me. It was light, almost polite, like a greeting. The shock made my ears ring. "Don't spill." Her voice was flat. Another slap. "Don't stare." When I told myself I was clumsy, it felt like I had control. If I were better, maybe she would be kind. That's how it works when you're small. You make everything your job so the world doesn't feel random. Fridays were the worst because I could taste a version of normal. My father would bring home fresh bread. He'd ruffle my hair. We'd eat together. Slowly. I learned to talk with my eyes. "Don't go back," I tried to say. "Look at me longer." But men like my father think love is mostly money and repairs. He sent money through his phone. He fixed the loose door handle. He didn't see how Rania's smile could turn its teeth off when he wasn't looking. The day at the alley didn't come out of nowhere. It was built from smaller days. Days when my slice of bread shrank, when my chores grew, when my school fees were lost, when my uniform got misplaced. That morning, my stomach had been an empty drum. Rania told me we were going to the market. We walked past the bakery windows where light made the pastries glow like tiny suns. She bought herself a coffee and a sandwich. She drank the coffee like a secret and ate half the sandwich. The other half she wrapped, not for me. She tossed it in a bin as if the act made her lighter. "Please, Mom, I'm hungry." The word mom fell wrong, but she insisted I use it. She said real mothers deserve the title. She said if I didn't practice, my mouth would never learn. She pressed the bag into my hand. She turned away. The world blurred at the edges. That's when the car slowed. The window slid down and the cool air touched my face. The man had kind lines at the corners of his eyes like he laughed a lot. He looked first at me, then at the bag, then over my shoulder at Rania, who had stopped but didn't turn. His voice was not loud, but it carried through the alley like it knew where to go. That's not food. Not for her. Rania turned then, slow. Sir, this is family. We're fine. She smiled. Her smile was capable, the kind that wins arguments before they start. The man didn't argue. He stepped out of the car and his shoes made a soft sound. On the ground, expensive leather meeting dust. He crouched to my level. Hey, I'm David. Are you hungry? I nodded before fear could catch up. He looked at Rania again. There is a restaurant 2 streets away with my name on the door. Let me feed her. I'll pay here, now, if that makes you comfortable. You can sit with us. Rania's eyes flicked to my fingers on the bag, to his watch, to the traffic. She put a hand on my shoulder and the grip bit. We're not beggars. She's being dramatic. She's eaten. Let's go, Noor. David's gaze moved to where her fingers pressed my skin. He didn't grab, didn't scold. He pulled a card from his pocket. If you change your mind, bring her. He slid the card into the paper bag, and his fingertips brushed the greasy bun like he was blessing a sickness away. He looked at me once more, and nothing in his face said pity. It said, I see you. It said, you're not invisible. We walked away. The card burned like a small sun in my bag. I didn't dare look at it until we turned the corner. Rania moved fast. At the end of the lane, she stopped, snatched the bag, dug out the card, read it, and laughed. David Kahn. Olive Court. Her nails snapped the card in 2 and dropped the pieces in the gutter. She leaned down. If I ever catch you looking at that restaurant, you won't eat for a week. Do you understand? I nodded because saying yes had become my shield, but my eyes couldn't help it. As we passed the cross street, I saw the sign, Olive Court, brass letters catching the light. The double doors were glass, and inside I glimpsed white shirts and silver trays and bowls of color that looked like a festival. I swallowed. My tongue remembered what flavors used to mean. That night, hunger sharpened my hearing. I heard the neighbors' televisions, the couple upstairs fighting over a missing receipt, a dog barking at a cloud. I heard Rania in the living room, whispering on the phone. She said the word fees 3 times, the word delay twice. She laughed once, and it sounded like metal. I dreamed of the card floating back together in the gutter, the pieces finding each other like magnets, the letters lining up until the name shone again. The next morning, Rania said I couldn't go to school because the computer was down, and the school had called to delay. I knew she was lying because Miss Layla's school didn't have a fancy computer. It had one old desktop in the office that buzzed like a bee and smelled faintly of heat. But I nodded. Rania handed me a list. Sweep, mop, polish the railing, clean the bathroom tiles with a toothbrush, then maybe you can eat. Maybe, I started. I liked clean floors. They looked like possibilities. At noon, the heat grew thick. I took the trash out. On the stairs, I saw Auntie Sabine. She was soaking chickpeas in a bowl. She peered at my face the way elders read weather. Come, child, sit a moment. She pressed a glass of water into my hand. Did you eat? I opened my mouth, and a small truth fell out. Not yet. Come by at 2, she whispered, glancing toward our door. I'll have stew. Bring your math book. We'll call it tutoring. I felt my throat pinch. Thank you, Auntie. At 2, the doorbell rang from our house like fate had heard and was jealous. Rania answered. I stood behind her shoulder like a shadow. A man in a blue shirt smiled big. Delivery. His cap said, Olive Court. He held a bag that breathed out a warm smell. Rice, butter, roasted meat, herbs. Rania's face went white, then red. We didn't order anything, she snapped. The man checked his paper. Address matches. Paid in full by a Mr. David Enjoy. He placed the bag on the floor and left before arguments could catch him. I didn't breathe. Rania stared at the bag like it might explode. She kicked it into the house and slammed the door. She locked the latch. She looked at me. Her voice was soft in a way that made the hairs on my arms rise. Where did he get this address? I shook my head. I truly didn't know. And yet, somewhere deep, a tiny happy guess was dancing. Maybe the license plate, maybe the bakery guy, maybe the universe. Rania opened the bag and pulled out a white box tied with green string. She flipped the lid. Inside were small bowls nested together, yellow rice puffy like clouds, a stew with soft carrots that shone, a salad with mint leaves still cool, a round bread blistered with char. There was a note on top. For Noor. Eat slow. Your friend, David. Rania held the note with 2 fingers like it was dirty. She read it twice. Then she fed me. Not with love, with calculation. Sit. Eat quickly, she said, glancing at the door. If your father calls, you will say I made this. Do you understand? If anyone asks, you will say my name first. I ate. I ate so slowly I thought time would stop in case I never got to eat like this again. Flavors layered. Cumin sang in the back of my mouth. The stew was gentle. The bread, like a hand on my head saying, "You're safe." I looked up. For a second, Rania's hard face softened. The slightest question passed through her eyes, like a bird that considered landing and didn't. Then her jaw set. "Remember who takes care of you," she said. That night, she cut the note into pieces and flushed them away. But you know paper. It remembers. The letters drifted through the pipes and arranged themselves in my dreams. For Noor. Eat slow. Your friend. A week stretched like old chewing gum. Every day, work first, then a small meal if Rania felt generous. Some days she would talk sweetly into the phone, complaining about school delays, about rising costs, about how children these days ate too much. The money my father sent grew wings and disappeared. I folded laundry with my hands and unfolded plans with my mind. If I walk past Olive Court at 4 when the sun is lazy, will anyone notice a girl with clean braids and a hungry stare? If I stand across the street, will the smell deliver a message to my chest? On Thursday, as I set plates on the table, I heard a knock. My heart did the thing birds do when you clap close to them. Rania opened. David stood there in a linen shirt carrying a plain paper bag. He didn't step in. He stayed at the threshold like an old-fashioned gentleman in a movie. "Good afternoon. I brought some extra bread from a staff training. I wasn't sure if you had time to cook today." This wasn't a question. It was a bridge. Rania tried to laugh. "We're fine. We don't need charity." David nodded. "Then let me make a trade." He lifted the bag a little. "Your husband fixed our pastry counter last month. The manager paid, but I wanted to say thank you. Again. I insist." Rania blinked. "David said my father's name the way you say a word you respect." She stepped aside a fraction of an inch. He didn't enter. He held out the bag. Rania took it, the way you take a hot plate, fast and careful. "Thank you," she said, teeth tight. He looked at me. "Hello, Noor. You look strong." He left. The hallway smelled like rosemary. That evening, I ate bread that tasted like a promise. For dessert, there was a small square of honey cake that made my eyes close with joy. In the dark of my room, a thought grew roots. Maybe this is how a rescue starts. Not with sirens, but with someone who refuses to be fooled by polite cruelty. Rania retaliated. She told the landlord we were loud. She hid my school books and said I'd lost them. When I cried, she made her voice sing-song. Tears are drama. Hunger is a lesson. Love is earned. It got worse the night my father called on video. His face lit the screen, tired and soft. He asked how we were. Rania held the phone like a trophy. "We're great," she said. "Noor is thriving. She cooks with me every night." "Say hi, Noor." I leaned in. "Hi, Bubba." He smiled. "My brave girl." Rania aimed the camera at a pot of stew. "See? I make her favorite." My father's eyes went wet. "Thank you, Rania." He didn't see the plate on the counter. One plate. He didn't see the bowl I had washed for myself. Clean and empty, drying upside down. After the call, Rania handed me a spoon. She pointed at the pot. She served me 3 spoonfuls, then took the bowl away. "That's enough," she said. "Your stomach should stay small." On Sunday morning, the street woke up with horns and prayers. I was sweeping the corridor when Auntie Sabine appeared, balancing a tray. "Good morning, child. I made too much porridge. You'll help me finish it, hm?" She winked. She didn't ask. I followed her into the cool of her home. The walls held photographs, laughing faces, old weddings, a cat in a sock. She set me at her table and poured porridge into a deep bowl. She sprinkled cinnamon like confetti. "Eat," she said, "and tell me one true thing. One true thing." It felt like a rescue boat. I ate. I told her about the bread, about the cake, about the man named David who talked like a calm sea. She nodded slowly. "Eat," she said, again, and took out her phone. I didn't see her message, but I saw her eyes sharpen like she had remembered she was not just a neighbor, but a soldier. That afternoon, she met David at Olive Court. I know this because later she told me, and I saw it in the way their friendship formed in front of me like a rope being braided. One strand, then another, then strong. The turning point came during a storm. The sky went bruised at noon and opened at 4. Rain hammered the city like fingers on 100 doors. The power cut. The street turned into a river of mirror. Rania's mood curdled. Storms made her restless. She decided I'd left dust under the sofa on purpose, that my cough was fake, that my eyes were disrespectful. She pushed me out onto the balcony and closed the slider. "Mopping lesson," she mouthed through the glass. I started to cry because cold rain is a different kind of hunger. It eats heat. I knocked. She lifted her hand and mimed "zip your mouth." The rain ran down my hair into my collar. My teeth began to chatter. On the raw edge of my fear, I heard a voice downstairs. It traveled up like rescue on a staircase. Auntie Sabine. She was calling my name in her bright, everyday way, as if this were normal, as if we were playing. "Noor, Beta, I have fresh bread." Rania hesitated. "Noise is dangerous when you're hiding cruelty." She cracked the slider. "Go get it," she hissed. "Come straight back. If you say anything, I will—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. I ran down the wet steps in my slippers, hair sticking to my forehead. Auntie stood in the entrance, umbrella in one hand, a paper bag in the other. She didn't look at the slippered feet or the wet shirt like a scolding mom. She looked at my eyes first, like a healer. "Come," she said. And then, behind her, as if the door of the world opened wider, David stepped in from the rain carrying a big silver container. We moved fast because sometimes safety is speed. They brought me to Olive Court, to the back door where the kitchen smelled like onions and home. Steam fogged the windows. Pans hissed. Someone laughed, high and surprised. David draped a dry towel over my shoulders. He didn't touch my hair like an owner. He touched it like a father would if the day had gone wrong. "Sit here," he said, and led me to a small office just off the kitchen where a heater clicked and hummed. He set a plate in front of me that looked like a picture from a book. Yellow lentils, steamed rice, a boiled egg with salt. Eat. Slow. I ate. I cried because sometimes the distance between suffering and safety is one bite wide, and your body can't believe it. David sat across from me, elbows on his knees, eyes kind and steady. He didn't ask me to explain the storm on my clothes. He asked if I liked books. He asked if I liked cinnamon or cardamom in my tea. He told me something I've replayed 100 times since. When I was your age, I learned 2 truths. 1. Hunger is loud. 2. Kindness is louder if someone has the courage to turn up the volume. The mini cliffhanger came with the knock on the office door. It wasn't a soft knock. It was the kind of knock that expects doors to obey. Rania's voice slid through the crack. I know she's here. What happened next did not look like a movie at first. It looked like 2 adults in a hallway deciding whether the world would continue to be cruel. David stepped out and closed the office door behind him. I heard his voice. Low. Come into the dining room. Let's talk where it's bright. Rania's reply was sharp, then sugar, then sharp again. She spoke fast. Family, misunderstanding, influence, property, lies. David didn't match her speed. Slow is a power of its own. They sat at a small table near the window. Rain rubbed its shoulders against the glass. The dining room was empty except for a few staff who pretended to polish forks, but were listening like their ears were doors. Auntie Sabine stood a few steps away, her hands folded like this was a prayer she intended to finish. David brought tea. He poured for her first. He waited for her to sip. Then he said, Rania, I know the landlord, the shopkeeper, and 3 families on this street. I know your husband sends money every Friday. I know school fees haven't been paid in 2 months. I know Noor has lost weight, and her uniform is missing. I know because people who love a child pay attention. Rania laughed, a loud sound that tried to fill the room. Men love to play savior. She leaned in. Mind your own business. David nodded like he heard a weather report. My business is food and children who are hungry. He slid a paper across the table. It was a printed screenshot. My father's transfer receipts, dates, and amounts. Auntie must have helped. Evidence is a language bullies pretend they don't speak. Rania glanced at it, and then away. Quick. He slid another. Pictures, time-stamped, of me taking the trash out at noon, of me standing on the balcony in the rain. He slid one more. Miss Layla's note about unpaid fees and a child who often looks faint. Rania stood. She said words that made the air hotter. Accusations, names. She reached for my arm through the office door, and David stepped between us with a kindness that was also a wall. You need to leave now, he said. Tomorrow, a social worker will visit. If you care for Noor, you will cooperate. If not, the law will help you. Rania's face did a quick dance. Shock, calculation, rage. She hissed at me through her teeth. Ungrateful. She turned to David. You'll regret this. She left. The door banged. The rain got louder and then smaller, like the storm had to choose who to listen to. Struggle doesn't pack up and move out because a good man made tea. It lingers. That week, Rania screamed in the hallway at Auntie. She called me a liar in the stairwell. She left the front door open and told the neighbors she felt unsafe because a man from a restaurant kidnapped her child. She knew how to sound like the good one. The social worker came with a clipboard and eyes that looked over the rims of her glasses like truth was standing on my shoulder. Her name was Mariam. She listened. She didn't rush. She asked me what a normal day looked like and wrote it down as if it mattered, because it did. She asked if I wanted to live with my father if he were home full-time. I said yes. She asked if I felt safe with Rania. I looked at my knees. I said no. My father came back that Friday before sunset, the way the call to prayer threads gold into the edges of things. He walked into a room already full. Auntie, David, Mariam, and me. Rania sat on the sofa, arms crossed, face pulled into a martyr's mask. As the facts were laid out, my father's eyes moved like a man learning a new alphabet. Transfer receipts, school notes, photos, my thin wrists, the way my shoulders flinched when Rania stood. Rania cried then. Not because she was sorry, but because she was cornered. She talked about stress, finances, my attitude. She said I threw tantrums for attention. She said I refused to eat fresh meals she made, that I hoarded bread like a thief, that I lied to make her look bad because I missed my real mother. That last phrase made something in me break, but in a good way, like a shell that had finished its job. My father looked at me with eyes that weren't tired anymore. They were burning. He spoke my name the way you light a candle in a dark room. Noor. Is this true? I didn't give a speech. I told him small things. I told him about 3 spoonfuls, about the balcony, about the day the bread arrived, and I had to say another name before I said mine. My father's face changed shape. It became the one from my first house. The man who knelt to tie my shoelace so carefully, you'd think the knot could decide the future. He turned to Rania. Leave. She laughed, high and wild. This is my home. I made it beautiful. I made you functional. I cleaned your grief. You want me gone? Fine. But I will take what I deserve. She glanced toward the bedroom where she had kept a small suitcase ready the way some people keep an exit plan hidden in their pillowcase. The law doesn't run at the speed of feelings. Papers had to be signed. Locks had to be changed. But something essential happened in that moment. The power shifted. My father called the landlord and the bank. He called the school. He called his boss and said words he'd never said. I need to be home. He cried. He apologized to me until the apologies piled up like fresh bread on the table. I forgave him because grief had tricked him, and because he was choosing me now. Not as a part-time job, but as a life. The confrontation everyone remembers happened a week later under bright lights and a tall ceiling. David invited us to a community night at Olive Court. He called it a feast for the street. He invited the shopkeeper who saved coins for kids when they were short, the bus driver who played old songs on Fridays, the fruit seller with poetry prices, the school principal, and even the landlord who pretended not to notice when people were late on rent. He invited Rania, too, because he wasn't afraid of truth in a crowded room. The tables were long, and the cloths were white like new chapters. Bowls of food lined the center, rice jeweled with pomegranate, chicken roasted with lemon and thyme, lentils that smelled like rain on hot stone, a salad so green it made your eyes happy. David stood up at the start and said a few things that were simple and heavy. He said, "We are here to eat and to see each other." He said, "Hunger hides in plain sight." He said, "Tonight we're going to practice a neighborhood's real job, making sure the smallest among us are fed." We ate. My father sat next to me and peeled me an orange like I was little again, separating the slices with the care of a jeweler. I tried not to cry over fruit. Rania arrived late, heels loud, hair perfect, mouth set. She took a seat at the end of the table and smiled like a knife. Halfway through the meal, David tapped his glass. He told a story about a boy who grew up hungry and learned to cook because recipes felt like spells that could turn emptiness into something that smelled like home. He didn't say it was him, but everyone knew. He called up 3 people to speak. Miss Layla, who talked about children and dignity, Auntie, who cracked a joke and made us all breathe, and Miriam, who explained rights and responsibilities in a voice that felt like a soft gavel. Then David lifted a silver lid. Under it was a small, dented metal bowl placed on a white plate. The room exhaled. In the bowl, he had recreated the exact meal from the alley: a broken bun, wilted lettuce, a smear of sauce, a couple of raisins standing in for ants because even a demonstration has limits. He didn't look at Rania. He looked at the children in the room. "This is not food," he said. "If anyone tries to tell you it is, come find me. Come find any of us. Our job as grown-ups is to make this bowl disappear from our city." Rania stood. "Enough theatrics," she said. She tried to leave. 2 officers at the door stepped forward, not with handcuffs, but with words. "Ma'am, may we have a moment?" We have questions about financial records regarding child support, and we need your statement." She argued. She accused. She called David a manipulator and me an actress. But the room wasn't buying tickets to her show anymore. Truth had center stage and the lights were bright. She left with the officers to give her statement. She didn't come back that night. Papers moved in the days that followed. Restraining order, interim custody with my father, and a fraud investigation about misused funds sent for my care. There were hearings, and in those rooms the air smelled like old books and new chances. I learned that justice is not the same thing as revenge. Justice tries to fix. Revenge tries to hurt. David taught me that by the way he spoke to everyone, even the ones who had failed me, with sentences that were stern and clean. The climax wasn't a shout. It was a door opening. It was my father putting his tools down because he'd arranged to work locally. It was new keys in my palm, the click of our front door, the smell of paint because we decided to erase the old colors and choose new ones together. It was the first day back at school when Miss Layla hugged me and slipped a book into my bag, a story about a girl who learns to plant a garden in a city where flowers forgot their names. It was the Saturday morning I stood in Olive Court's kitchen in a too-big apron while David showed me how to stir lentils without breaking their hearts. "Hold the spoon like you're talking to a friend," he said. "Don't rush. Let the boil do the work." We celebrated with a feast. Not the community one. This was small. Our table, me, my father, Auntie, Miriam, and David. There were candles that didn't need a power cut to be beautiful. There was laughter that didn't need to be loud to be true. When David set the last dish down, rice, golden and joyful, he looked at me like he had waited his whole life to say the next sentence. "Noor, will you help me with something bigger than dinner?" He laid out his plan like a map. A scholarship for my schooling, from his foundation for kids who had known hunger too closely. A part-time job after school when I turned 10, polishing menus, folding napkins, learning the orchestra of a kitchen. A small savings account with my name on it, and my father as co-signer. And, quietly, counseling, because food heals the body, but the heart needs a different kind of table. I said yes to all of it, because saying yes had once been my shield, but now it could be my invitation. Rania's case wound through the courts. She received a sentence that included community service, mandatory counseling, and a ban on being a guardian without supervision. The fraud charges were settled with restitution. She didn't show up in our building again. Sometimes justice looks like jail. Sometimes it looks like strict lines you cannot cross anymore. What mattered to me was this: the house learned how to sing again. In the months that followed, our life turned into a string of small repairs that felt like miracles. My father learned to cook 3 dishes very well: lentils, eggs, and a chicken curry so gentle it almost apologized as you ate it. He learned how to part my hair straight and tie 2 perfect braids. He learned how to show up at school plays with flowers he bought from a man on the corner who tied ribbons without asking extra. He learned how to sit with me on the balcony at sunset and talk about my mother until the stories made us warm instead of sad. I learned how to trust the sound of my own hunger: food hunger, love hunger, safety hunger. I learned that asking is brave. I learned that some neighbors are really family that lived next door the whole time. I learned that a restaurant can be a school, and a man who owns it can be a teacher who never makes you feel small. The night before my 9th birthday, I stood in Olive Court's dining room after closing. The chairs were up. The air smelled like cinnamon and lemon and the clean wetness of mopped floors. David handed me a small box. Inside was a recipe card in his handwriting: Noor's lentils. It had 3 lines of directions and 1 line of something else. Rule 4, he'd written: never eat in the dark again. If the lights go out, call us. We're a long table now. There's always a seat. Here's the quiet part. Most stories skip. Healing is not a montage. There were days I woke scared for no reason, nights when the rain made my skin remember being cold. There were mornings when my father oversalted the eggs and cursed softly, and then laughed and said, "We'll try again." There were afternoons when I saw a woman with red nails and my throat went tight. But the distance between who I was and who I'm becoming grew each week like a plant that finally found a window. I visited my mother's grave with my father and auntie. We brought marigolds and bread. I told her about the alley and the feast and the man who turned up the volume on kindness. I told her I was learning to cook. I told her I was okay. The breeze moved through the trees like applause. On the first day of summer break, David asked if I wanted to help plan a new program at Olive Court. Early dinners for kids who needed a place to sit, no questions asked. We would call it the long table. Kids could come with siblings, with friends, with neighbors. They would eat. They would do homework at a side table where pencils stood in jars like little soldiers waiting for their orders. A tall shelf would hold books. A low shelf would hold puzzles and crayons. Anyone who ate had to promise to help clean up one small thing: stack plates, fold napkins, wipe a chair back. Because dignity goes down easier when you also get to give something back. We opened the long table on a Tuesday. The first night, 7 kids came. By Friday, 15. The week after, 21. It grew the way good rumors do, fast and warm. Sometimes fathers came, nervous at first, then grateful. Sometimes mothers came, and you could see their shoulders drop as if someone had set down a bag they didn't know they were carrying. Sometimes teachers came and stayed to grade papers, head bent, smiling. If you walked by Olive Court on those evenings, you'd see it. The lights bright, the bowls steaming, a city learning how to feed its young out loud. You'd hear laughter and the scrape of chair legs and the quiet music of spoons tapping bowls. You might see me in my too big apron, stirring lentils like they could answer prayers. You might see David leaning against the counter, watching with the calm satisfaction of a farmer who knows that seeds, if kept, warm and watered, will insist on becoming a field. What's the moral? I've thought about this a lot. It's not, be nice. That's too small. It's not, mind your business. That's the lie that keeps bad things quiet. It's not even, call the authorities. Though sometimes that is exactly the right thing. For me, it's this. Choose to see. Choose to see the kid who doesn't finish their sentence. Choose to see the neighbor who laughs too loud to cover the sound of something breaking. Choose to see the difference between hunger and punishment, and then turn kindness up. Do it loudly. Do it in daylight. Do it like it's your name on the door. If this story moved you, don't leave it here. Tell me in the comments what a real meal means where you live. Was there a David in your life? Were you an auntie for someone? Do you want to be? Share one small action you can take this week. A packed lunch for the shy kid in your building. A call to a school to ask if any fees are overdue. An extra plate on your table. If you can't do food, do time. Sit with a child and listen to their stories like they're the news. And if you want more stories where heavy turns to hope, hit subscribe. I'll keep telling them. I'll keep reminding you that you're not alone at the table. Leave a like if you believe no child should eat in the dark. Leave a comment if you've ever been the one to switch on the light. Share this with someone who needs to remember that the world is not just a hallway of closed doors. It is also a dining room where someone is already pulling out a chair with your name on it.